The 1980s, a decade of neon dreams, Saturday morning cartoons, and blockbuster spectacles. Yet beneath the bright surface, another world flickered. Animated films that dared to go further, darker, stranger. Many were silenced, banned, or buried by censors. But they survive, whispered about by those who saw them. Today, we rediscover 12 of these forbidden works of art. 1. Heavy Metal, 1981. The screen opens in darkness. Then, a lone astronaut descends from a Chevrolet Corvette hurtling through space. A surreal image, half rock album cover, half fever dream. This was Heavy Metal, a cult anthology that shocked audiences when it exploded onto screens in 1981. Its characters were outsiders, warriors, dreamers, and misfits, all bound by the ominous green orb called the Loch Nar. Each vignette brought a different world, post-apocalyptic wastelands, alien realms, fantasy kingdoms dripping in sex and violence. These weren't your Saturday morning cartoons. They were the visual embodiment of counterculture, stitched together with a soundtrack of Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, and Journey. The tone was unapologetically adult. Themes of corruption, lust, and death animated with bold strokes. Critics recoiled. Some countries outright banned screenings, citing nudity, gore, and its drug-fueled aesthetic. Parents expecting another Fantasia stormed out in shock. Yet, for a generation of late-night viewers, it became a rite of passage. Bootleg Vive, HS copies circulated like contraband. Its animation, though uneven, carried a raw, unfiltered energy rarely seen in American cinema. Heavy Metal didn't play by Hollywood's rules. It shredded them with electric guitars and glowing swords. Today, its impact lingers. It paved the way for adult-oriented animation in the West, daring studios to take risks. Beneath the smoke and neon, it whispered one truth: that animation could be dangerous and unforgettable. 2. When the Wind Blows, 1986. An English countryside, rolling hills, a quaint cottage with lace curtains fluttering in the breeze. At first glance, it looks like a watercolor painting of innocence. But then, sirens wail, shadows lengthen, and the sky threatens to burn. This is When the Wind Blows, an animated nightmare dressed in pastoral calm. The film follows Jim and Hilda, an elderly couple clinging to the rituals of daily life. They brew tea, read the papers, and prepare for a nuclear strike as if it were a storm passing overhead. Their devotion is touching, their optimism heartbreaking, and therein lies the tragedy. Adapted from Raymond Briggs' graphic novel, the animation blends hand-drawn charm with stop-motion realism. It feels intimate, almost tender, yet the themes, government propaganda, naive trust, and looming apocalypse cut to the bone. In 1986, with Cold War tensions high, the film was deemed too disturbing for younger audiences. Some broadcasters refused to air it. In other countries, it was quietly suppressed. Critics admired its courage. David Bowie contributed to the haunting soundtrack, his voice drifting over scenes of quiet despair. But audiences left shaken, many calling it one of the most devastating animated films ever made. Its impact remains profound. At a time when cartoons were dismissed as children's fare, When the Wind Blows reminded the world that animation could confront real horrors. With brushstrokes and silence, it painted the end of innocence. 3. Rock and Rule, 1983. Neon lights flicker. A smoke-filled club pulses with music. On stage, a singer belts out a ballad that could tear the roof off. This is Rock and Rule, a Canadian animated feature that promised the world, but delivered controversy instead. Set in a post-apocalyptic future, the film centers on Mawk, a villainous rock star obsessed with summoning a demon through music. Against him stand Angel, a young singer with a voice of purity, and her friends, who must stop Mawk's apocalyptic concert. The characters were animalistic, anthropomorphic hybrids, edgy and strange. The themes, fame, corruption, the seductive power of music. It was marketed as the first adult animated musical, complete with songs from Debbie Harry, Lou Reed, and Iggy Pop. But censors weren't impressed. The film's violence, drug undertones, and occult imagery led to bans in several countries. Even in North America, it was recut, censored, and dumped quietly into theaters. Financially, it flopped. Critics were baffled, yet among cult circles, it thrived. Its gritty animation style, part Blade Runner, part rock video, captured the restless spirit of the early 80s. Bootlegs kept it alive until DVD releases finally restored its reputation. Today, rock and roll feels like a time capsule. When animators dared to rebel, fusing punk energy with fantasy, it was too strange for mainstream audiences, too bold for censors. But for those who found it, it was unforgettable. 4. Wicked City, 1987. A city skyline at night. Neon signs glow, rain slicks the pavement, and shadows stretch into eternity. But in the darkness, something monstrous lurks. This is Wicked City, a Japanese animated film that pushed boundaries so far it was banned outright in many regions. The story follows Renzaburo, a special agent tasked with maintaining peace between humans and demons. His reluctant partner, Meikie, is a demon woman torn between two worlds. Together, they must stop a conspiracy that threatens to collapse the fragile truce. The animation is sleek, stylish, drenched in noir atmosphere. Every frame feels like a fevered dream, violent, sensual, terrifying. Its themes were clear: desire, corruption, the thin line between man and monster. But its execution was shocking. Graphic violence, sexual horror, and grotesque transformations pushed it beyond what most audiences could accept. Upon release, it was banned or heavily cut in several countries, accused of being obscene. Critics called it exploitative, while fans hailed it as a bold exploration of adult storytelling in anime. In Japan, it became a touchstone for the burgeoning genre of horror animation. Its legacy endures in whispers. Directors like Guillermo del Toro have cited it as an influence. While mainstream audiences may never embrace it, Wicked City proved that animation could confront the darkest corners of human desire. A dangerous city. A forbidden film. 5. Akira, 1988. A motorbike roars through the night. Neon streaks across wet pavement. Tokyo, reborn after destruction, shimmers in a blaze of lights and shadows. This is Akira, the film that shattered boundaries and terrified censors worldwide. The story follows Kaneda, a rebellious biker, and his childhood friend Tetsuo, who gains devastating psychic powers after a mysterious accident. Their friendship, once unbreakable, spirals into tragedy as Tokyo teeters on the edge of annihilation. What set Akira apart wasn't just its breathtaking animation, every frame hand-drawn with obsessive precision. It was its sheer audacity. The themes were raw: corruption, government secrecy, adolescence consumed by power, and the fragility of humanity in the shadow of technology. For audiences used to cheerful animation, Akira was a shockwave. When it premiered in 1988, some countries recoiled. Bans, age restrictions, and censorship edits followed. The graphic violence, psychic body horror, and nihilistic tone were deemed too much. Yet, for others, it was a revelation. Akira wasn't just a movie, it was proof that animation could be cinema on the grandest scale, capable of the same depth and terror as live-action epics. Over time, its cult status grew. Western critics hailed it as a masterpiece, inspiring generations of filmmakers, from the Wachowskis to Christopher Nolan. Its imagery, Kaneda's scarlet motorcycle skid, Tetsuo's monstrous transformation, became etched in pop culture's memory. Today, Akira stands as both a banned film and a beacon. Too violent for some, too visionary to ignore. It dared to imagine the future, and in many ways, it predicted it. 6. Fire and Ice, 1983. A storm gathers over jagged peaks. In the distance, ice castles clash with firelit kingdoms. Ralph Bakshi's Fire and Ice was more than an animated fantasy. It was a battle hymn painted in motion, and for some censors, it was too raw to be shown. The film introduces Larn, a young survivor of a village destroyed by the icy tyrant Necron. Alongside the fierce warrior Tigra, Lauren embarks on a journey across landscapes of flame, frost, and danger. It's a tale of resilience, survival, and the eternal clash between light and shadow. What made it controversial was Bakshi's choice of style. Using rotoscope animation, he traced real actors frame by frame, giving the film an uncanny realism. The battles felt brutal, the characters moved with startling humanity. And the sensuality. Warriors rendered in near nudity, bodies sculpted like marble, pushed boundaries. Many critics accused it of being too violent, too sexual, too adult for an animated film. In certain countries it was censored, cut, or relegated to late-night obscurity. Mainstream audiences dismissed it, but cult fans clung to its savage beauty. While it never achieved the acclaim of Akira or heavy metal, Fire and Ice became an underground classic. Its landscapes, co-designed by legendary fantasy artist Frank Frazetta, remain breathtaking. Mountains rise like cathedral spires, flames crackle with menace. Every frame feels painted with mythic intensity. In hindsight, the bands seem almost ironic. Fire and Ice wasn't obscene, it was operatic. A brutal fairy tale reminding us that animation could embody primal struggle. Today, its legacy lives in whispers of awe, a frozen flame in animation's history. Seventh Golgo, 13, The Professional, 1983. A sniper's scope glints in the dark. The city is alive with motion, yet one man moves silently through its veins. This is Golgo 13, cold, efficient, unstoppable. When Golgo 13. The Professional hit theaters, it left audiences stunned and censors horrified. The film follows Duke Togo, codenamed Golgo 13, a professional assassin whose life is defined by contracts, bullets, and solitude. His mission takes him into a web of conspiracy, betrayal, and revenge. What distinguishes him isn't his violence, it's his emptiness. He is a man stripped of warmth, a figure shaped only by survival. The animation was strikingly modern for 1983. Sleek cityscapes lit with neon, blood rendered in vivid scarlet, and action sequences that combine noir grit with kinetic spectacle. But it was the themes, assassination, corruption, moral decay, that sparked outrage. The violence was cold, clinical, and relentless. Unlike cartoon villains, people in this world bled. They died. Censors in Europe and Asia moved quickly. Some banned the film outright. Others cut it beyond recognition. Critics accused it of glorifying brutality. Parents feared its influence. And yet, for those who found it, often in bootleg tapes, it became a revelation. Golgo 13 pushed animation into uncharted territory. It suggested that cartoons could explore the psyche of killers and the shadows of geopolitics with the same gravity as live-action thrillers. Its influence rippled outward, shaping anime's evolution toward darker, adult themes. Today it remains both infamous and admired, a film too cold for comfort, too sharp for censorship, an animated assassin who never missed his mark. 8. Grave of the Fireflies, 1988. A boy crouches beside a glowing firefly, his sister giggling softly by his side. The scene radiates warmth, yet beneath it lies unbearable sorrow. This is Grave of the Fireflies, one of the most devastating animated films ever made, and one too painful for many censors to allow. Set in the waning days of World War II, it follows Seita and Setsuko, two siblings struggling to survive after losing everything. Their bond is tender, heartbreaking, radiant in its humanity. Every gesture, a shared sweet, a whispered lullaby, feels like a prayer against despair. Released in 1988 by Studio Ghibli, the film stunned audiences. This was not fantasy or whimsy. It was realism at its rawest. Director Isao Takahata refused sentimentality. He painted war not as glory, but as hunger, silence, and the slow extinguishing of innocence. For some, it was too much. In certain countries, censors resisted screenings, arguing that its depiction of civilian suffering was too disturbing, too unflinching. Teachers debated whether it should be shown to children, Others accused it of being politically inflammatory. Yet its artistry was undeniable. The watercolor backgrounds, the delicate movements, the haunting score, all combined to create a film that transcended animation. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, but warned viewers to bring tissues and courage. Over time, it became a global touchstone, a reminder of war's cost, seen through the eyes of children who deserved more than history allowed. While some banned it, others embraced it as essential. Even today, Grave of the Fireflies burns in memory, a lantern of grief, a warning, proof that animation, at its purest, can break your heart and change how you see the world. 9. Angel's Egg, 1985. A pale girl wanders a ruined city, cradling a fragile egg in her arms. The streets are silent. Statues loom like forgotten gods. Rain falls endlessly. This is Angel's Egg, Mamoru Oshii's haunting meditation on faith and loss. A film so enigmatic that many censors dismissed it as dangerous. The girl never speaks, only clings to her egg. A mysterious boy appears, questioning her devotion, tempting her to doubt. Their silent companionship unfolds in stark, surreal landscapes, cathedrals without worshippers, oceans filled with shadows, hunters chasing phantom fish. The film defies explanation. It is a poem painted in ink and silence. Released in 1985, Angel's Egg baffled audiences. There was no conventional plot, no cheerful resolution. Instead, Oshii channeled his own crisis of faith into a work that felt sacrilegious to some. Its religious imagery, paired with nihilistic undertones, was considered too unsettling. In certain regions, distributors refused to handle it. Broadcasters avoided it entirely. For those who sought it out, though, the film became a revelation. Its atmosphere was hypnotic, its animation exquisite. Each frame could hang in a gallery. The score, composed by Yoshihiro Kano, pulsed with eerie reverence. Viewers debated its meaning for decades. Was the egg hope, belief, or simply illusion? Censors tried to silence it, but they failed. Today, Angel's Egg is revered as one of anime's boldest artistic statements, a film that dared to reject answers and instead embraced mystery. It remains a fragile treasure, like the egg itself, easily broken, impossible to forget. 10. Fritz the Cat. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, 1984. The streets of New York thrum with chaos. Graffiti, smoke, and rebellion pulse through every frame. At the center of it all is Fritz, a cynical, hedonistic cat, stumbling from one surreal misadventure to another. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, released in 1984, carried the legacy of Ralph Bakshi's notorious original and doubled down on controversy. Unlike its predecessor, this sequel wasn't helmed by Bakshi, but it retained the satirical bite. Fritz, disillusioned with adulthood, drifts through a series of alternate lives: Vietnam soldier, politician, junkie, suburban husband. Each scenario skewers society's hypocrisies, from war to racism to consumer culture. What shocked censors was the frankness: sex, drugs, violence, all portrayed with sardonic humor. In an era when animation was synonymous with childhood innocence, Fritz the Cat spit in its face. Countries like England and Germany banned or restricted it, calling it obscene. Even in America, screenings were limited, tucked away in underground theaters. Critics were divided. Some dismissed it as juvenile shock. Others hailed it as biting satire, cloaked in cartoon absurdity. But what can't be denied is its impact. Fritz embodied the rebellious, disillusioned spirit of the counterculture. His world was dirty, loud, and raw, yet undeniably alive. For audiences today, The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat feels like a time capsule of America's cynicism in the early 80s. It was banned for its vulgarity, yes, but also because it dared to mirror a society people didn't want to see. 11. Twilight of the Cockroaches, 1987. A sink drips, crumbs scatter across the floor, and in the shadows, a community of cockroaches thrives, living with joy, rituals, and dreams, until extermination comes. Twilight of the Cockroaches dared to humanize what humans loathe. and for that, it faced bans and disgust. This 1987 Japanese film blended live action with animation. The cockroach world, drawn with warmth and humor, contrasted sharply against the cold, real-world footage of human apartments. The roaches had personalities, romances, families. They played, they fought, they dreamed of peace with humans. But peace never lasts. The story centered on Naomi, a young cockroach who believes in coexistence, and Ichiro, a roach hardened by survival. Their fragile love is tested when humans wage war with poisons and traps. What begins as whimsical quickly becomes tragic, a meditation on survival, prejudice, and the arrogance of humanity. Audiences recoiled. Censors in several countries refused to air it, calling it revolting. Critics debated whether it was genius or grotesque. To some, it was satire of consumer society. To others, it was unwatchable. Yet its artistry shone through. The juxtaposition of live action and animation created an unsettling mirror. We destroy what we deem vermin. But what if those vermin had voices, songs, and souls? Though banned in places, Twilight of the Cockroaches survives as a singular piece of cinema, not just about insects, but about empathy. It asks a dangerous question. What if the lowest creatures among us matter too? 12. Urotsukidoji, Legend of the Overfiend, 1989. A storm of flesh and shadow. Monsters writhe. Humanity teeters between ecstasy and annihilation. This is Urotsukidoji, Legend of the Overfiend, the film that birthed an infamous subgenre, shocked global censors, and became one of the most banned animated movies of the 1980s. Its story, at first, seemed like myth, a prophecy of a being, the Overfiend, who would unite humans, beasts, and demons into one world. But what unfolded was something few had ever seen in animation: violent, grotesque, sexual horror rendered with unflinching detail. Released in 1989, it was met with outrage. In Britain, it was seized under obscenity laws. Other countries banned it outright, arguing it blurred lines between pornography and horror. Even in Japan, it was controversial, sparking debates over freedom of expression in animation. Critics condemned it as exploitative, yet others argued it was more than shock. It was allegory, a fevered reflection of Japan's anxieties during an era of rapid change. Whatever the interpretation, its notoriety spread like wildfire. Bootleg tapes crossed borders, carrying its dark reputation. For some, it was too disturbing to endure. For others, it was proof that animation could trespass into realms cinema had never dared. Today, its influence is undeniable, though whispered with discomfort. It pushed the boundaries of censorship, of storytelling, of what animated images could express. Banned, reviled, yet unforgettable, Urotsukidoji became the ultimate forbidden film of its time. The 1980s gave us more than bright cartoons and neon fantasies. It gave us danger, rebellion, and visions too wild for censors to contain. These banned films remind us that animation is not just for children. It is for dreamers, rebels, and seekers. Subscribe and rediscover cinema's hidden shadows.